Hi guys, welcome to the Fundamentals of IELTS Writing Task 2, a 10-part series covering what you need to know in the academic IELTS Writing Task 2. In this series, we're going to break down the 3 simple stages of how to write an effective essay, and these are the planning stage, the writing stage, and the checking stage. In the previous video, we covered writing complex sentences. Now in this video, we're going to look at synonyms. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to show you a group of words and I want you to identify which words are synonyms. So here we go. Which among these words are synonyms? All right. So third level education and university are synonyms. Now, how about in this group of words? Okay, chief and principal are synonyms. So, what are synonyms? Well, synonyms are different words that have exactly the same or nearly the same meaning. But why do we have to use synonyms in our essays? Well, there are 3 reasons for that. And the first one is to avoid sounding very repetitive. As you know, if we just repeat the same words over and over again, our essay will sound so boring, and we don't want that to happen. Another reason is we use synonyms to paraphrase the topic in the introduction. As I mentioned in the previous video, in writing introduction, we have to paraphrase the topic. And one way to do that is by using synonyms. And finally, using synonyms also show to the examiner that we have a wide range of vocabulary, and this will surely boost our lexical resource score. But how do we choose synonyms? Well, if you go online, if you go on websites like thesaurus.com and you just input a word trying to look for its synonym, you will actually get lots of different words and you're not sure which ones are suitable or appropriate to what you are writing. So the thing here is that we should only use synonyms that have exactly, I repeat, exactly the same meaning as you want to replace. As I mentioned in the earlier part of the video, synonyms are words that have exactly the same or nearly the same meaning. So you don't want to use the words that have nearly the same meaning or similar meaning to the word that you want to replace. You want to choose the word that has exactly the same meaning. Now let's look at this question and the student's paraphrase and see whether the student has chosen the correct or accurate synonyms. The question is, it is important that young children are taught art, drama, and music alongside more traditional subjects like maths and science. Do you agree or disagree? And the student's paraphrase is, it is important that young people are taught extracurricular activities alongside serious subjects like mathematics, biology, and chemistry. What do you think? Well, it's good to know that the student has tried or has attempted to change the words in the question. However, are these words actually accurate? Let's check. So the student has changed young children to young people, art, drama, and music to extracurricular activities, and traditional subjects to serious subjects. Are these accurate synonyms? Well, these are actually what we call loose synonyms. What are loose synonyms? These are words that don't really mean the same as each other, but we think that they are the same. Let's look at this in more detail. So young children replaced with young people. Young children actually refers to people between the ages of around 1 to 10, okay, a child. But when we say young people, these are those between the ages of around 1 to 30, okay? So people, young people, that tends to be general. It's not a relevant age group, okay? Because in the question, we're only talking about children, young children. So it's totally different from young people. Although children, yeah, young children belong to the group young people. However, using young people includes a wider age range. So it's not an accurate synonym to young children. Art, drama, and music replaced with extracurricular activities. Well, art, drama, and music, these are all school subjects, right? However, when we say extracurricular activities, these are actually things that you do outside of school. So let's say a club activity, an outreach activity, something that you don't do inside the school. And if you keep using extracurricular activities all throughout your essay, you're probably writing irrelevant ideas because, as I said, these two are totally different. Traditional subjects, serious subjects. Well, perhaps the student was thinking that a person who's traditional tends to be serious. But I would not say that traditional and the serious are the same. Okay, they are loose synonyms. I don't actually consider them synonyms at all. Okay, so let's look at another example. The question is, the growth in crime among teenagers can be attributed to an increase in the use of violent video games. To what extent do you agree or disagree? And the student's paraphrase is, the rise of acts of violence in young ones are often viewed as being caused by the exposure to fierce audiovisual games. Okay, so once again, the student has tried changing the words and some words in the question, and let's see whether these are correct. So instead of crime, the student has written acts of violence, teenagers replaced with young ones, and violent to fears. Are these accurate synonyms? Let's look at it. Let's look at them in more detail. Okay. Crime. Crime, well, yeah, that refers to all sorts of crime. And acts of violence, perhaps the student wants to say acts of violence. It's the wrong word form. Violent is an adjective. Act of should be followed by a noun, so it should be acts of violence. All right. So yeah, acts of violence. It's kind of general though. Some acts of violence are not really considered a crime, right? So let's say, for example, you hit your classmate. It's not really a crime, but that's an act of violence. Teenagers, young ones. Well, yes, teenagers are young people, but this is not a good way to paraphrase teenagers. Okay, you could probably use the words minor or juvenile instead of young ones. Violent is not really the same as fierce. So when we say fierce, that's another way of saying strong or intense. Video games to audiovisual games. Well, you might think that, oh, audiovisual games sounds uncommon. And I think this is a paraphrase of video games. Well, now audiovisual games is not really the same as video games. Okay? So let's have the last example. The question is, today people are traveling more than ever before. Why is this the case? What are the benefits of traveling for the traveler? And let's say that you replace the word traveling with commuting, a loose synonym of traveling. When we say commute, that means you travel, yeah, but travel to and from work. However, in this question, we're not talking about that kind of traveling. This traveling here refers to going to one place or another city, another country for leisure, okay, not for work. Okay, so commuting is a loose synonym for traveling. So, what are alternatives to synonyms? Let's say in the actual test, you cannot really come up with a good synonym. What are other ways that you can avoid repetition? Well, there are three other ways. The first one is by giving examples, such as computers. To avoid using computers again and again, we can use laptops and tablets, and these are exactly the same things that we use in class. Okay, so instead of computers, you can say laptops and tablets. But rule of thumb, you must only use examples that are relevant to the idea that you're trying to convey. Okay, so use examples that are accurate as well. Definitions. Let's say traveling, the one that we looked at earlier, you can say people going from place to place. And finally, changing the form of the word. Let's say violent video games. It's actually quite challenging, difficult to come up with a synonym for this phrase. So instead of using violent, you can use violence. Video games that have violence. So all we did is just to change the form of the word violent from adjective to violence, a noun. All right. So what are things to remember in using synonyms? First, we should only change a word if we are 100% sure that the meanings are the same. As I said, we want to avoid using nearly the same meanings or similar meanings, or what we call loose synonyms. Yeah, so be aware of loose synonyms. And if you change the form of the word, you must also know that the grammar should also be correct. Okay, so it does not end in changing the form of the word. You have to make sure that the whole sentence is still grammatically correct. Be particularly careful with keywords from the question. So like in the third example that we have, the keyword, one keyword there is traveling. And if you think that the whole essay will mean differently if you change the word traveling to another word that you're not so sure of, and that's the main key word from the question. So better not replace that word. Okay. And yeah, if you can't think of a synonym, try one of the alternative methods. So if in doubt, don't change it. It's better to repeat the word and be correct than force a synonym and be wrong. Okay, so remember, having a high score in lexical resource is not only about using synonyms, but also being accurate with our choice of words. So yeah, that's it for this video about synonyms. In the next video, we're going to look at one of the marking criteria in writing task 2, which is coherence and cohesion. So stay tuned.